You're listening to the Novice Experience, a podcast that explores the opportunities and challenges commonly encountered by students and young people. I'm Calvin Chan, and chatting with my guests, I'm going to take a deep dive into their meaningful stories, the lessons they've learned, and how they can inspire others. Let's get going. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Novice Experience. I'm your host, Calvin Chan. Today, we're going to talk about entrepreneurship and starting your own business as a young person. And my guest is Edward Chiang. He goes by Eddie, and we've known each other for many years now, Eddie. We were in the Air Cadet program together, and I was really honored to be the squadron commander of our unit, our Air Cadet unit, right after you. So thanks for coming to my podcast.
Hey, thanks so much, Calvin, for having me.
So, Eddie, you just received your Bachelor's of Applied Science in Mechatronics Systems Engineering from Simon Fraser University this year.
Yep.
And what's really cool is that you were selected to be a part of the 2020 cohort for Next 36, which is a youth development program for entrepreneurship and building business. And during and after Next 36, you co-founded your own company called Moment Technology, which is an energy startup working with Simon Fraser University to allow greater access to safe, sustainable, and reliable energy in remote communities. All pretty cool stuff that you've done in the past year or so.
Yeah. Time really flies.
I like to start my episodes with an origin story from my guest. So, where you're born and raised, some of the defining moments in your life that make up who you are today.
Yeah. First of all, I just wanted to say your intro is really good. Holy cow.
Thanks.
Well
Yeah,
done.
I
So
do a little bit of stalking on your social media.
yeah, you do your research well, and it's awesome that to kind of um, see the growth within you, and also you seeing me grow because we're only really a year apart, I believe, and it's really
Yeah.
cool that you're doing this podcast. But yeah, so a type of a origin story, I guess. So yeah, like Calvin mentioned, I joined the Air Cadets when I was 12, and it's a pretty similar story between the both of us. And just growing up in Vancouver in general, had lots of opportunity to become a pilot. So both of us are pilots. And through that, I kind of just learned and really, really admired the engineering profession. Because mainly, hey, if my plane breaks down, I just thought, as especially in grade 12, I should be the one that's able to fix my own plane. I don't know why I thought that, especially because I will probably be in the plane, not outside fixing it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of what inspired me to go to Simon Fraser University for mechatronics. And throughout my it was actually a full 6 years of education, though I always preface it with my last year. I already finished all my courses, but it had to do with my startup. That's why I was there for an extra year. Throughout those 4 years, I really um, through a lot of engineers and also not non-engineers. We know that university is quite tough, and um, a lot of people struggle emotionally. So what actually happened was me going through some tougher times emotionally around second and third year. Um, I pretty much decided to spread out my entire education so that I can take my time um, and really just get to know the friends that I have and now call co-founders, and we pretty much work together to get through that degree. And the reason why I bring this up and why now I have a really, really strong mindset towards mindfulness and taking care of yourself, be it working out, meditation, whatever works for you, is because in our very last year for engineering, me and once again my three co-founders, so we have Samreen, Grimesh, and Gabe. We pretty much all did capstone together, and we co-invented a neurostimulation device. So with the guidance of a professor, we pretty much made a headband that we can joke about it now because now it's not a company anymore. We were literally shocking people's brains. So it's like a headband on the outside, and it's very, very low current. You can really barely feel a tingle. And it was supposed to stimulate the portions of your brain that are associated with well-being, and but while suppressing the parts that are associated with kind of like wandering thoughts, anxiety, and stress. So at that time, the reason why we created this device is because once I reached my very final year, so that's around the fifth year of my education, I kind of looked back in my second and third year like, oh man, in second and third year, I took six courses balancing friendships, relationships, and family, and that took too much of a toll on me, and I just couldn't do it. But now in the last year, I would have to take eight courses at the same time while doing all the same things. So I was a little bit nervous, and I picked up meditation. I literally just downloaded the Headspace app on my phone, um, and from January all the way to the end of my degree or all my classes, which was August of that year, I swear, like I had felt zero stress. No, even though I wake up at 6 a.m. and by the time I go to school, get back from school, I'm in a coffee shop till 12 a.m. Like, yes, I was tired, but I never felt any stress. And I would actually associate that with taking care of myself, like working out, but also meditation. And I kind of, as a team, we kind of took those experiences and thought like, hey, why doesn't everybody pick up meditation or pick up mindfulness based exercises such as yoga? And we kind of looked, and a lot of people struggled with it because of these wandering thoughts, stress, anxiety, and that's why we developed this device, which had scientific backings, but they didn't have the engineers to really build it out, and we were the ones that built it out. And after our capstone, it was quite successful. We decided, and we finished all our classes by August. We decided to pursue it as a startup between September last year, exactly. So 2019, September to December. And that a lot of the advice we got with Simon Fraser, we had a lot. They don't own anything, but they were just there to support us. And I want to shout out to the venture connections at SFU, because they'll literally give you $10,000 a semester and office space and a mentor completely for free with no equity, no nothing. So
That's pretty awesome.
yeah, like it's really cool. I think all they really wanted, and I don't want to like call out other universities, but other universities like will take 4 or 5% of your startup. Um, SFU kind of just wants, I guess, bragging rights, so which is really good. And yeah, so the advice we got from our mentor is like, hey, you guys are a team of 4 engineers. Um, you guys are really good at building your product. That's great. We know you can do it, but you need to go out and talk to customers. So we did. That's exactly what we did. We completely dropped the development of the product. We already did most of it over the 8 months of capstone for our undergrad anyways. And then we just went out to talk to customers, and literally like going to a lot of meditation studios, meeting a group of people called biohackers who really value every percentage of efficiency within their body. So maybe you might have heard of bulletproof coffee, where people would put butter from Victoria into their coffee, and it was touted that they would have an increase of cognition by 5%. So like these were the type of people we're kind of talking to, and that were interested in beta testing, and they were literally willing to pay to beta test a non-certified product, which we thought was quite interesting, and there's a lot of promise there. But then as we did more research and we worked on the startup for 4 months, we kind of saw that we ran into a hurdle, which was the FDA approval process, and that's a lot of hurdles that a lot of startups will run into, regulation, and a lot of times I hopefully you would be able to utilize regulations to your own advantage, and I can touch upon that, exactly how you do that while you're starting your own company. But for this particular idea and this particular company, FDA would have cost us 4 years of our lives plus $2 million of for to even get that certification. And for people that don't know what FDA means, it's pretty much the stamp of approval that every medical device needs, so that a doctor can recommend this device to you. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't get a stamp of approval, then you'll get in trouble, because if somebody else uses this device and they get hurt, then you're 100% liable. So that's not good either. So we kind of, once we were quoted that around December time, we looked internally and we thought, you know what, we're four robotics engineers. What makes us qualified in starting this company? And our answers were, one, we talked to lots of customers over the past year, sure, but anybody can kind of do that. And two is, yeah, we know how to build it and we've built the product. But we still need to onboard a doctor, a psychologist, and just the roadmap there for to develop a really successful business was too long, and we didn't really see what the concept is actually called founder market fit. We didn't see the founder market fit within this. Yes, we have personally or know other people that have suffered through depression or anxiety, but once again, why are we qualified to solve this solution?
Right, but Eddie, like it's pretty darn cool that you guys took something like an adversity as part of being in an engineering program, because like I know it firsthand. It's super hard, it's super
Mhm.
stressful. It really works on your mood and emotions. You took the adversity from that and you channeled it into something innovative, and you tapped in that entrepreneurial side of you to fix that problem, and you proved to yourself that it's a working solution.
Mhm.
Obviously, because you said that you felt no stress, right? So I think that's a really really cool thing that you did with the adversity that you faced in engineering. Because I mean, it's like you built this like ASMR machine but on steroids for relaxation, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so what happened after? How did you lead you to Next and Moment Technology?
Yeah, so pretty much for the listeners in general, Next 36 is the top founder development incubator within Canada, and they select the top 36, hence the name, new grads, so undergraduates, graduates, and PhDs that are coming out of universities across Canada that have the entrepreneurial spirit to build the next unicorn company. Or in Canada, a unicorn company means the next billion-dollar company. Or in Canada, we like to joke how it's the next narwhal company, um, the Canadian unicorn. Anyways,
Right.
so pretty much what happened was, as we were working on, we like to say Moment 1.0, Moment 1.0 as in the neurostimulation device. That's how I got in. I pretty much was flown out to Toronto. We got interviewed out of the Shopify headquarters, met leading CEOs from Rogers Communications, and then all over that have sold companies for like multiple companies actually for
And
hundreds of
what was
millions
it
of dollars.
And
Uh,
what was it like being in that room, Eddie? Like
yeah,
just seeing all these people that are so much more experienced and qualified and higher up in the corporate world than who's just a student at the time. Like, how did it feel?
I think what surprised me was one, as an engineer, you're not. It's harder for you to be social. Maybe it's because you're not a business student. You're not
Right.
used to going out and networking and talking. So I was a little bit nervous. But then at the same time, it broke down a lot of barriers that I maybe had just thought made up myself. Where when I met all these CEOs, they were just regular humans. They
Mhm.
knew as a lot within their own field, but they also don't know a lot in a field that maybe you're an expert in. Like the Rogers CEO has no idea, like not even close to the idea of what a biochem student might even know, right?
Right.
So it's quite interesting and how humbling it is when you realize, like, oh, we're kind of just all humans. Anybody can start a company. Anybody can be at this upper level, as long as you kind of just work for it. And
Mhm.
it was quite inspiring to listen to their stories and how they got to their current positions.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like that's what business is all about. It's about adding value to society,
Hmm.
and there's never only that like one particular group of people that's experts in one field. Everyone is a learner, right? You're trying to learn more about a field. You do your own research and innovate in a particular field, and that's what I really like about entrepreneurship. It's you can't just designate yourself as an expert in one field. You have to keep doing your research, keep learning, and that's how you stay ahead of the competition.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And also, I was really surprised at how innovative these individuals were. Like when you think
Mhm.
of Rogers, you think of, oh, they're just my phone carrier, right? Like you don't think of innovation. You kind of just think of utility, conservative.
Service, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it was really interesting because this CEO was just nonstop talking about 5G and how it's our future and how the whole situation at that
Oh
time
yeah,
with Huawei was
yeah.
really crappy, not just for like just trusting China or whatever. Like he actually just thought like, oh man, if we were able to work with Huawei, then like innovation would move so much faster as well. And
Mhm,
I
mhm.
found it really interesting, and I really appreciated how he really pushed for innovation rather than just making money off of Canadians for like a standard cellular service, you know?
Right, right.
Mhm.
That's very interesting, and it's all about collaboration when we talk about advancing society
Mhm.
and innovating the next big thing that will change like people's lives. So it's all about working together, and yes, we talk about competition, but it's also putting different brains together and coming up with something new.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
And like talking about like putting brains together, that's kind of why Next 36 kind of drew me in. Um,
Yeah.
I always tell people that I had no clue what it was until I was literally on the flight over to Toronto. Um, but yeah, like it's literally just a room of like 35 other like the top like-minded, equally as driven, if not more driven, even better, individuals that are new grad, kind of the same age, and a lot of people find um, their lifelong co-founders and start literally million dollar, billion dollar companies with them, or even like jokingly, we always say that there's always one couple that gets married every cohort. So you might find your
Yeah.
lifelong partner in hustling in that way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty like I think meeting these individuals and meeting these friends, um, it was quite life changing in the sense that now we're constantly texting each other and we
Hmm.
understand when we're busy because we're all working on our own startups. But two is like if we were venting and we something went wrong with the customer or what went wrong with the product, the only person that actually knows like the struggle is another entrepreneur. We always
Right.
say that you can tell your mom, let's say your mom and dad aren't entrepreneurs. You can tell them about how the customer kind of dropped you or how that investor meeting went super poorly. But your parents are obviously always going to love you and support you and be like, "Oh, that's okay, honey. You'll get it next time." But in reality, in your heart of hearts, you'll know that they won't understand. So that's why I always say it's really important to have friends that are also entrepreneurs so that when you do talk about this, not only are they going to understand, but a lot of times they could also help you solve your problems. They'll have the connections. Help you brainstorm and they'll be there emotionally to support you. So that's kind of why I think programs like Next 36 and there are many other programs across North America and the world um, are important. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
So how did it lead you to starting Moment Technology? Because I know that it was a company that was inspired by your experience when you were in an engineering co-op at a remote community in Ontario. You had that was a life-changing experiences in that you realized that there was a problem to be solved, and you had the innovative guts to tackle that problem and create a now a startup to solve that problem. So, tell us about what that process was and what your mission is now.
Yeah. So the process in general for starting company is everybody has their own origin story, and it's quite funny.
Yeah.
For us, once again, we were kind of on the tail end of our first startup, and before disbanding, we knew that, and I always say this: your team is the most important thing.
Hmm.
80%, sorry, 95% of startups fail, but 80% of the cause of that 95 is actually because you don't get along with your co-founder. So we knew we got along because we were best friends from first year, and we kind of started brainstorming before disbanding last December. Like, hey, let's kind of see if there's another market or another problem that we can solve together where we're even more qualified. And all four of us, we all co-founded our SFU SAE electric race team, so building an electric car vehicle from scratch. And then Gabe went to Tesla, and then so we had a lot of insights within the electric vehicle space. And then at the same time, like Kelvin was kind of mentioning, um, I pretty much co-opt at the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories. So that's 2 hours north of Ottawa. And pretty much what happened there was um, the tornado hit Ottawa in 2018 in the fall. And
Hmm.
right when they hit, they were kind of out of power for like 2 to 4 hours, which is longer than usual for an on grid bigger city. But then we were out of power for pretty much a day, 24 hours. And when that happened, that was the very first time where I truly had no power to shower, to cook. Cooking was actually a huge deal. And then a lot of the fridge didn't work, so like a lot of the frozen foods had to go, and it just like wasn't good to kind of keep. And it was wild because we walked around our little town of 3,000 people. So I would say this counts as rural Canada. And the local grocery store was just throwing away all their frozen foods as well. And I this was really wild in my mind, because I just come from Vancouver. We're out of power maybe for 15 minutes, maybe 2 hours maximum. Um, so then I kind of seeing a problem here where just reliability of energy across Canada isn't is a luxury, and I personally think is it's a common right for all humans now, but not everybody has this right. And especially if you go even more remote than I was, 4 hours north of Ottawa, or 6 hours, or even 20 hours north of Ottawa. The more north you go, there's still people living out there, but the less stable their power is. So taking pretty much my experience with remote and rural areas, and then also with our combined experience with electric vehicles, we kind of saw an opportunity where now Moment, I guess this is where the little pitch comes in. Moment Energy is repurposing electric vehicle batteries for renewable energy storage. Right. Our ultimate goal is to help as many remote communities, such as communities in Nunavut, Indigenous, non-Indigenous communities, wean off of diesel. So these big communities have maybe one, two, three huge diesel generators that
Mm-hmm.
take literally $43 million to fuel up every year for like a little town of maybe 500 ish, or maybe even less, to 100 people. And a lot of these communities want to install renewables. The problem is that they can't, because solar, wind, they're very intermittent. The moment the clouds come up, then the solar panels aren't as effective. If there's no wind that day, then there's nothing spinning the turbines. And this is why energy storage is very, very, very crucial if you want to be 100% um, 100% off of diesel, pretty much, and 100% renewable.
So are you repurposing batteries from the EVs, or are you using the rest of its life cycle um, that perhaps was not suitable for car use anymore?
Mm. I mean, the answer is kind of both. So,
Okay.
on the supply side, a- and the environmental side in general, it is once you have, let's say, a Nissan Leaf, as a consumer, you've driven this Nissan Leaf from, well, 8 years pretty much. And a lot of times, especially if we're looking at different countries like Norway, usually people trade in their electric vehicle the same amount of times they trade in for their combustion vehicle, which is 8 to 10 years, every 8 to 10 years. But also there are other indicators where when you bought your electric vehicle and you are at it's completely new and you just have a full charge, it might say that you have 400 kilometers on a full charge. But just like your phone, after 8 years, the battery degrades and it can't hold as much charge anymore, and you'll see a significant decrease. Maybe you'll lose 100 kilometers. Maybe if you live in so that the full charge will show that you have 300 kilometers left. Or maybe if you live in a really hot area like Phoenix or Alberta or wherever, then you'll even see less than that. Maybe half of the charge is left after, sorry, half of the range is left on a full
Hmm.
charge. So this will signify to the consumer, hey, it's probably time to get a new car. And when these cars go to uh, hopefully the recycler, the problem is recycling technology, especially EV recycling technology, is just not there yet.
Right.
It's not profitable, and they're going to charge you, at least in Vancouver, $4,000 to get your vehicle recycled, which is wild because
That's direct from consumer?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like literally, like, hey, I'm gonna scrap my car, but I want to do it responsibly. I want to drive this over to the recycler. You drive it over, and he'd be like, "All right, $4,000, please," and then I'll.
That's not really talked about when we're buying EVs nowadays.
It's not, and that's a
Yeah.
huge problem. Where even though EVs are environmentally more friendly and there's less carbon being produced,
Hmm.
a lot of people are still worried that, hey, what happens to the lithium at the end of its life, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
oh, a lot of people just think like it's going to land up in the landfill, and a lot of those people are actually absolutely right, because recycling isn't profitable. No, the recyclers aren't going to want to take it yet, right? They're just going to lose money if they try to recycle your battery. And then two is the consumer's like, hey, I don't want to responsibly recycle these batteries, my vehicle, because I'm going to get charged $4,000, right? And then the auto manufacturer, you drive it back to your dealership, and the dealership doesn't want to handle it either because they don't want to lose money, right? They made $30,000, $40,000 sale for you. If they take that vehicle and they get it recycled, they're going to lose $4,000 of that sale, right?
Mhm.
So we're in that like limbo where nobody wants to responsibly get rid of their vehicles, and that's kind of where Moment is coming in. We'll take those vehicles off, or I mean, we don't really need the whole car and drivetrain part. Those
Yeah.
parts you can actually make money off of if you go to some metal scrapper. But we'll take
Yeah.
the batteries, which a lot of people are afraid of, and we'll take
Mhm.
those batteries. We're going to repackage them into renewable energy storage, and we can extend the life of these batteries, which we're going to head to the landfill anyways, um, for an extra 7+ years. So right now we're doing the research to extend it to even more than 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, and that's kind of where what we're working on as a company. But when we do that, we're hoping that in another decade, recycling technology will become profitable, where companies don't have to lose money when recycling these batteries, and people don't have to lose money when recycling these batteries. And we're already seeing this trend. And the trend is in China, the government mandates 100% of electric vehicle batteries be the responsibility of the auto manufacturer. So these auto manufacturers like BYD, Geely, these EV manufacturers overseas, they're already looking for ways to repurpose or recycle more efficiently their batteries, right? In Europe, 50% of these batteries have to be dealt with by the auto manufacturer. Right now in North America, we don't have any of these legislations, but we've already seen in America that they're pushing for these bills where, once again, the auto manufacturer has to take responsibility. And auto manufacturers, they're in the business of selling new cars. They're not in the business of recycling things.
No,
Uh,
yeah.
so that's why they're look right now. We have been lucky, and we've been partnering with a lot of very large auto manufacturers, where they want to give us their batteries for either a very, very low cost. And we only really pay if they've done the testing for us to see which batteries are good and which ones aren't, and they give us a good product. Or we've actually partnered with cities as well. So we've partnered with the city of Seattle, and they're what's really cool about Seattle is all their buses are either hybrid or fully electric. So now we're getting free batteries from them, because they would have they have a budget to ship these batteries to a recycler and pay the recycler to get these recycled. Now these people, the city of Seattle only has to ship it to us, and then they get to keep their budget, because they don't need to pay us anymore, which is great. And then now we pretty much have a supply partnership with Nissan. Luckily, Nissan in North America are doing a great job, and they're the ones that are collecting their Nissan Leaf vehicles, end of life Nissan Leaf vehicles from their dealership. And then we're one of the handful of 5 companies, and the only Canadian company that it has a supply relationship with Nissan, which is great because then they test all the batteries for us and then send us the good ones. And then now we're also we're pretty much dotting the I's, crossing the T's on 3 more partnerships with 3 very large European auto manufacturers, which I can't disclose right now, but
Yeah.
they're really exciting. And um, yeah, and our supply there is growing. And the reason why we are pretty much making all these partnerships is because we've seen other companies try to attempt what we're doing now. And the other companies that are trying to repurpose EV batteries 10 years ago. 10 years ago, there are barely any EVs on the road. Let alone now, there are a lot of EVs on the road, but we still have to wait another 10 years before these EVs get to end of life, right?
Yeah.
So even for timing wise, we are still young. It's true, but we think that this is the perfect opportunity because EV manufacturers are seeing like, oh crap, like legislation's coming out where I need to take the responsibilities. Like, let me go find a company that will help me take responsibility instead.
Yeah,
And
I was gonna say this is a pretty cool business idea because I mean we're still learning about how EV will sort of fit in our society, but your company is already ahead of the curve, and you're thinking about what happens to the battery itself after its end of life, right? So I feel like you're a little bit ahead of of the curve, and it's really interesting how you talk about building the partnership and the relationships
Mhm,
with the companies because it's a win-win situation, right? Like they need to find a way out of these used batteries,
mhm,
whereas you need to find that it's a supply for you for your business. So I really like that symbiotic relationship. Now, like because obviously you and your team has to go find these partnerships.
mhm.
And you talked about how these were your classmates in at SFU, and
Mhm.
I was just wondering, like, how would you build an effective team, like Eddie? Like, what differentiates a good and a great team in business?
Yeah, I would say building your own team is hard. It requires lots of coffee chats. It requires you to know your co-founder inside and out, and we say that it's super important because you're literally married to them.
Right.
It's pretty much your second like long-term relationship, so you better
Yeah.
get it right. Two is once again what you alluded to. It's really good if you've experienced that pain yourself. If you for us, like, since I've also lived without power for a bit, I've seen with my eyes what other people are going through. Then you know the pain points and you know what to solve with your solution. And then three is the founder market fit, and it adds to this. Like, if you've experienced it, that makes you that encourages founder market fit. But also, if you have expertise in that field, such as for us within electric vehicles, we know the technology well, then that also really increases founder market fit. To really develop that team around you, you also need to really be super, super self critical. I think personally, I know what are my flaws, so I am able to look for people that
Mhm.
can help supplement that. And I think what's really amazing with our startup is my co-founders, we do exactly that. There are two of us that like to work really, really fast. We're grinding things out. But then our attention to detail is pretty bad in general. Like, if I sent out an email, like I would see like a lot of people, sorry, I would see lots of red underlines, you can say, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then there are the other two where they're very good at attention to detail. They're really good at making those connections even through email with these individuals because they put lots of quality through their messages and everything. So we kind of see the counteracting there, right? Same thing where, for example, I'm an engineer, but I love the business side. So when I saw a gap within there, I decided to go to these courses like Next 36 and taking Y Combinator online courses to really fill in that gap. While I had I had another co-founder who wanted to work purely on the technical side, and he loved the technical side. So
Mhm.
so we kind of fit each other there. Where if I need help, I'm talking to customer, and I'm really good at selling. But then the customer needs some technical information. He's usually both of us are on a call together, and he's the one answering those questions. So really having a good opposite that will fill in all of your weaknesses, but at the same time, you guys aren't so opposite that you guys kind of butt heads is really the key there.
And Eddie, how do you handle adversity and doubt? Obviously, there's lots of challenges along the way when you're starting up a business and you're in a field that's pretty new. There's not a lot of historical evidence of what you can do with these EV batteries.
Mhm.
Um, like, how have you grown and transformed yourself so far through entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I mean, my first message with that in general is that if you're listening and you're starting your company or thinking about starting your own company, it's okay. If you have no clue what's going on and you have no clue what your next step is, every single entrepreneur, even if they have 100 employees now, they're still a startup, but they have 100 employees under them, they don't know what they're doing. But our job as leaders, C-level leaders within our startup and our companies, is to make our best guess and to be able to lead other individuals to the vision that you have. So the first thing that I would always like to say is, like, have your goal. Like, what when you close your eyes and you start your company. So for us, if we use Moment as an example, when I close my eyes and I'm looking literally 20 years into the future, where do I see this company? And even making outlandish claims like, I want a battery in every single home. That sounds pretty wild, but at least you know what direction you want to go and that ultimate vision. So having that vision is very, very important. And then taking it step by step every day will really help ease your uncertainties. And another thing that I've also alluded to, and I'd say this is the second really second pillar that's really important, is to have really good friends around that have gone through what you're going through, will understand what you mean when you talk about your startup, and are just your great support system. Your family is one really good place to start, and then also just slowly branching out to other friends, and getting their encouragement and their support is also really important, because really the people that are going to support you while you're building your own company, first and foremost is your family and friends. So definitely keep them updated, talk to them a ton, let them know how the company is going. And that can also give you lots of support when things are getting darker and you feel like they're like giving up. If you feel like giving up right now, it is okay. Everybody, all the successful entrepreneurs that I've talked to have said that they've had that feeling. But what you need to do as an entrepreneur is feel okay with being uncomfortable. Be comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. That's pretty much the term.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to end off with a question
Mm-hmm.
to ask, like, if you had one piece of advice for someone just starting out, what would it be? And I think you touched on some really important pillars there
Mm-hmm.
of, the grinding mindset of just, as a young person especially, going through this process of unknown and doubt and uncertainty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much more resilient you come out on from it,
Mm-hmm.
and how much more you know about yourself. And I think one thing that I personally have realized is that we can think and plan in our heads about what we want to do and what we aspire to be, but nothing comes into fruition until we take that first step. Like, we just have to freaking do it, right?
Exactly.
And like, what are some of the moments in your uh, entrepreneur path so far that there are moments where you realize that you're thinking so much about what you want to do, but you haven't taken that first step yet. Just really quickly, what was your experience with that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's really um September last year was pretty much that moment, right? The
Mhm.
moment I was finishing up my degree, and I had a product out there, but we all start thinking, hey, should I do a full-time job or should I start my own startup, knowingly make no money for a year, 2 years, indefinitely, at least in your mind? That's a huge risk to take and a really scary risk to take.
Mhm.
Um, and really just having the support of my co-founders and realizing, hey, you know what, now is the time. Yes, I'm young. A lot of people are telling me, hey, maybe you're too young to start a company. um, I don't believe that. I think that while you're young, that is the time for you to start that company, that idea, and to just really do it, because now is the time when nobody expects much of you when you're in your early 20s, in your 20s, even if you're in high school and you're listening, and nobody's really expecting that much from you. So why not just attempt something? And then if you fail, nobody's even going to really bat an eye, right? And two is, while we're at this young stage, we are fortunate to be in the care of our parents. So now's the time where you can afford to only eat the ramen noodles and kind of still be reliant on your parents while you can focus on that startup. And that's why I always encourage young entrepreneurs in their high school years, even up until when they just graduate, if you're contemplating and starting a company, to just really do it, because now is the time.
Mhm. Eddie, thank you so much for your insight today. I think we could have chat for another hour or two. It's so interesting, your path for the last year or two from engineering to now, full on entrepreneur. I wish you all the best, you and your team all the best with Moment Technology. Where can our listeners find out more about your company online and on social media?
Yeah. So our well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the interview, and thanks for the podcast. You're doing a great job here.
Thank
Um,
you.
and yeah, to find Moment, we're just very simple, momentenergy.ca. And we are on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. If you just search up Moment Energy, you'll find us. And the social medias mainly are just updates for friends and family. So if you just want a more intimate view on our company and how we're going, definitely follow us on that. If you're interested to learning more on the technical side, what we're doing, feel free to shoot us a message on our website. And yeah.
All right, definitely go check out Moment Technology, Moment Energy on social media, and reach out to Eddie if you have any questions about starting your own business or entrepreneurship. That's it for this week's episode, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Novice Experience. Our theme song is Concrete Jungle by Audio Binger. You can find us or reach out on social media at the Novice Exp. That's the Novice EXP. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on all your podcast listening platforms. Talk to you next time.